everyone, and welcome back to Reflect Forward. I'm your host, Kerry Siggins, and I hope you're having a great day today. Today, my guest is Jason Silver. He is a startup advisor. He has founded several different types of companies. He's worked in all kinds of startups. He was at Airbnb at the beginning, so he knows a lot about the hard work that goes into founding a company, going through those initial startup years and how difficult it is, and how miserable it can be. And so he recently wrote a book called The Grass is Greener, and it's all about how to find more joy in your work, whether you're an entrepreneur, a founder of a startup, or a person who is just trying to figure out how to enjoy his or her job more. He has all kinds of amazing tips in his book, The Grass is Greener, that came out on September 2nd. And I know that you are going to just really appreciate his passion and his stories around finding more joy in what you do every day. So hang tight and I'll be right back with Jason. All right, everyone, I am back with Jason Silver. I'm so excited to have you on the show today to talk about your new book. Can you just tell the audience a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your book, The Grass is Greener?
Thanks a ton for having me. So, a little bit about me. I'm a type A, I think, by nature. I love to achieve, and that hasn't changed or is necessarily all that uncommon. But I think there's this really common, you can't have your cake and eat it too mentality, meaning you can't enjoy yourself and do great things at the same time. And I've become really passionate about showing high achievers, people that care about accomplishing things in their lives, that not only can you enjoy something and push for big things and achieve, but actually the more you enjoy it, the more you achieve it. And I find often we think about enjoyment as like fluff. And really, I think enjoyment is the fuel for the things that we all want to accomplish. And that's what the book's all about, is really how to enjoy your job more, why you should care about that, concrete tactical steps, and how it leads to better outcomes.
Yeah, I completely agree. Before I moved to Colorado and took over running Stone Age, I was so miserable in my job and I was unhappy, but I worked hard and I played hard. I was making unhealthy decisions, which doesn't ever help, but it's all just that vicious cycle of being unhappy and unfulfilled at work and then numbing yourself to your unhappiness. But happiness, especially in my 20s, was not even part of the my ethos. It was just work
Yes.
hard, work hard, work hard, achieve,
Mhm.
achieve, achieve. I'm a high achiever too. Move up the corporate ladder. And it was so miserable. So I am really glad that you wrote this book and I'm excited to dive into it. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about what you do because you're a startup advisor, correct? So can you
Mhm.
share just a little bit about your professional background as well?
Yeah, sure. Engineer by training, realized pretty quickly that, I loved kind of technical problem solving, but I really loved the business side of problem solving. So, relatively quickly after doing my master's in engineering, I started really getting interested in business, started focusing on like how do you build out companies, joined a startup in the very early days, got to see what that was like, founded two of my own companies, crashed one of them, wound up at Airbnb in its earlier days. So I got to really experience what the unmitigated up and to the right success looks like. Then built an AI company back before it was the coolest thing on the planet to do. And so I've been very fortunate to see all sorts of ups, downs, raising money, crashing companies, successes, failures, what have you. And now I spend my time working with CEOs, their executive teams, their leadership teams, helping them build their companies with a lens towards how are you going to build a great company and how do you make sure that people actually want to work for it? Because that's the thing that is going to make it as best as it can possibly be. So I like to think I do a lot of the strategic, regular stuff. And I kind of sneak in the message of you're an entrepreneur, you're an executive, you're a leader. It can be a great time along the way. It doesn't just have to feel like a grind all the time, and it's going to lead to better outcomes. So I sneak those two thoughts in, along with the traditional, let's set your OKRs and figure out how to solve whatever major challenge is going on.
Yeah, and I like that because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, especially founders, can get just caught up in their vision and the mission of the company and burn themselves out. So, do you find that this idea of you can have fun while building this company resonates? And if it does, can they actually do it?
Yeah. And I think that probably brings me to an important first point. I think it's often I find that we confuse the words like enjoyment and fun. and they're different. And I think the difference is nuanced, but it's really important. People will always say to me, Jay, I can't have fun in my job. That's good for so and so, but I'm the CEO, I'm the COO, I'm the chief whatever. I have a team of however many people we're trying to accomplish whatever, whatever, whatever. But I think what we tend to forget is that fun is always enjoyable, but enjoyment is not always fun.
Yeah.
Super simple example. I love running. That like last mile when I'm running is not fun. I'm tired. I'm pushing myself to go faster. I'm in a lot of pain. It's not fun, but I enjoy the entirety of the run. And similarly, some of the times in my career that I've enjoyed the most are when I'm trying to accomplish something really, really hard. There's a crazy deadline. We've hit some kind of a major impediment or something. It's not fun in the moment, but I enjoy it overall because of the way that we were approaching the specific thing. And so I don't try to help people see that, hey, your job can be fun all the time. I think that's untrue. That's why there's a word for fun and a word for work. Like they're different. But I think just because something's challenging, just because it's hard, just because you might be having to grind through a particular thing at a particular time, doesn't mean that you can't approach it in a way that you will overall enjoy, like the last mile of a marathon or whatever else it might be. So, really trying to focus people on what are we trying to accomplish? How do you want it to feel? And how can we bring some more enjoyment into it so that it isn't grinding you down all the time?
Yeah, I agree. I completely am with you. I enjoy doing hard things too, maybe to an extreme, but I think that the challenge is what makes it exciting. And I think that probably a lot of high achievers can feel that way as well, where it's like, I enjoy doing hard things. I enjoy the challenge. I enjoy solving the tough problem. I even enjoy screwing up because I know that it's going to be learning. But obviously, that takes time and maturing as an entrepreneur or as a leader to figure out that just because it's hard or challenging or even bad, that there's not that learning moment in it, that you can find enjoyment or appreciation for what you're going through.
Yeah, I think the big thing I try to push people on, and it's something that we shockingly don't spend a lot of time on, and is often it comes very naturally to think about what we're trying to accomplish. We build out a plan, we think about our goals, we're going to do this and this and this and this and this. We spend almost no time thinking about how do we want it to feel as we're going through this process.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that this can be very, very helpful for teams. There are times when it's like, hey, we're trying to hit this goal. The next 2 to 4 weeks, it's not going to feel great. Like we're going to be in the office really late. We're pushing on some stuff. There's not going to be a lot of fun in the moment on this kind of stuff. What I think this does is then the team knows, oh man, this is rough. I can organize my life around it. I know it's going to be really challenging. We're all kind of in it together. And I also know that there's a light at the end of this tunnel. This isn't the norm. It's a period of time that we're going through. But alternatively, when a leader takes his time and says, okay, here's the plan, they spend 10% of their planning time saying, I want this to feel like it's fun for people. Like this should feel fun. There's going to be some creative stuff in here. And I want to make sure that that feeling is part of the process. Just taking a little bit of time to think that through and infuse it in as you go has a huge, huge impact. So just taking a little bit of time to say, how do I want this journey to feel? What should the experience feel like for my people? It can have a big, big impact. And I find you can go do corporate planning, quarterly planning, you do it 100 times. That'll maybe come up on its own once, twice maximum. Like it's very, very, very uncommon. But that small little snippet can have a massive impact on how your team is feeling as they go through it. And as a result, the likelihood that you hit the outcomes that you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, leaders set the tone for their
Of
organization.
course.
And I advise a company, and the CEO and owner is a super high stress person and is kind of at that grind burnout phase. And I try to help him see, like, you are setting the tone for this. And because you are so miserable, you are making all of your employees miserable too, because you
Mm.
set that tone. If you can figure out a way to bring some fun and bring some joy into the work and lead that way, everybody else's temperature is going to go down too. And it's just so obvious, especially in a small company, when you see the impact that the leader or the founder's attitude, sense of well-being or misery
Mm.
really does affect the team. And I talk a lot in my podcast about the power of role modeling. And I think that leaders have to role model that and figure out a way to find joy in what they're doing so that their employees can find joy in what they're doing too, especially in those hard early days of startups.
And I think the find joy is something we all say, and like I love it, but it's
Yeah.
overlooked. You have to find it.
Yes.
It's not just there. Usually
No.
fun is just there. I'm going to the beach to play whatever with my kids. That's going to be fun because there's fun stuff around. It's a lot harder to think about. We have to do quarterly planning or we have to grow the number of customers. How are we going to make that enjoyable? You have to go and find it. What I wanted to show people is you could be just as tactical about that stuff. It is just as impactful, if not more impactful, than a lot of the other rhetoric that's out there. And the big pushback I used to get was, well, I have to do X, Y, and Z. I don't have a choice. Therefore, it can't be enjoyable. And what I try to show people is it's not about what you're trying to accomplish. It's about the way you're trying to accomplish it. Some very small tweaks to the way you're trying to accomplish things will have a big impact on how successful they are and how much you enjoyed it along the way. And that was kind of the genesis of the book, is like 9 of the most common challenges at work, 9 incredibly simple tactics. My rule was, if you can talk or type, you should be able to try everything in the book. And I wanted
I
to
lo-
show people that this isn't just big philosophical, like you can't do anything with it, kumbaya, go sit in the hills and grow a beer. And I'm not about that stuff. This is hugely based in performative work. How do you make it tactical? And that was what I found to be one of the more challenging things of the project, was just, it's not easy to take these big concepts like find the joy in your job
Mhm.
and make that practical so someone can say, there are concrete steps I can take here for the moments when it's not naturally enjoyable.
Yeah. I think it starts with your mindset. I wrote a book this past year called The Ownership Mindset. And I think it's one of the most powerful mindsets that you have when you say, I am responsible for everything that happens in my life. Nothing
Mm,
happens to me, it happens because of me, or it happens for me. And I'm responsible for how I show up, whether that is with my attitude, with my effort, with the quality of my relationships. I think that being able to go find the joy and implement some of these other 9 recommendations that you have, like the beginning part is you got to decide that you want to do it, that you're going to do it, that
mm.
it's worthwhile doing it. That mindset is such a tremendous asset and really the foundation for making any of these kinds of changes happen and actually stick.
Couldn't agree more. And not to keep like plugging the book, but you're like perfectly teeing me up for some stuff. The primary challenge I see people have is it's easy to be a non-believer about this stuff. And I was at first too. And it's usually because we're so busy. And that's why I made the first third of the book tactics that are going to help you enjoy your job more by removing time from your day to day. Because I think some of these things are not that hard when we give them some space. The
Mm-hmm.
biggest challenge I think most of us have is we have absolutely no space. You can't do a lot of this work off the side of your desk. You're not going to think about what you're really great at and how you can enjoy some of the tasks that you're doing on a more regular basis. When you're like shutting your laptop at midnight on your way to try to go to bed, it's like you need to carve out an hour in the middle of your day when you have a lot of other stuff going on. And so the first third of the book is totally dedicated to how you do 5 days of work in 4 without changing the number of hours that you're working, without changing your impact or anything like that. And it feels like a myth that it's possible, but shockingly, it really is not.
It really is when you start paying attention to what you actually spend time on. So, share us some of your tips on getting 5 days worth of work done in 4.
Yeah, we can go in lots of different directions, knowing the kinds of folks that you have on the podcast. Maybe one that would be something that comes up for me with pretty much every team I work with. All of my companies in the past had something like this. It's this idea of decision making. It's incredibly critically important. Every company is making decisions. Pretty much everything you do all day long is a decision. You have to decide what things you're going to do and when you're going to do them and how you're going to do them. Shockingly, nobody really teaches decision making as a discipline. It just kind of exists there as like a thing around the periphery. And in a lot of cases, our decision making discipline is not great. And that leads to things like decisions taking longer than we want. McKinsey did this awesome survey a while back. They found out that managers are self reporting that they're wasting a full day every week on slow or unnecessary decision making processes. And I don't mean they're spending a full day every week on decision making in
No.
general. The study showed that of all the time they spent on decision making, roughly half of it was wasted, which worked out to roughly 8 hours every single day. So if you can find a way to speed up decision making, you make the same decisions faster, you can gain back a full day every single week. Now, the primary pushback I get here every time I bring up this conversation is, well, my company is making really high risk decisions. My company is making very challenging decisions, very cross-functional decisions, and all that stuff is true until I stop and point to an example of some of the fastest decision making. And that's the Apollo mission from the 60s. They were obviously trying to put people on the moon in a very, very short time to make this happen. And the team was massive. About 400,000 people, over $200 billion budgets. They had no phones, no internet, no nothing to facilitate the communications. This team of people regularly made decisions in a single day. From the moment that the decision was brought up is like, oh, this is a thing we need to decide, until the moment that the decision was made, resourced, and ready to action was one single business day. Most people listening, like, imagine if most of your decisions could be made in a day.
Yeah.
And so when people tell me we can't do it because, I point to this example and I'm like, there's a government organization in the 60s making decisions that could kill people on top of technology that didn't even exist. They were coming up with it at the time, and they had to send people to the moon and back on a computer that is less powerful than the phone I walk around with in my pocket right now. You find me more risky, less complicated decisions than that. Good luck. And that's usually when people say, let's see what we can do here. The challenge is we're building teams that result in slower decisions. It's a bit of a catch-22, and it's something that feels obvious when I say it out loud, but we tend to miss it. We're building teams for more diversity, which is awesome. That's exactly what we should be doing. We probably don't need to spend any time on this podcast talking about the value of diverse thinking on teams. You want that. If you don't believe it, go Google it. You'll find all the great research out there that shows it. The challenge is that the more people we have and the more diverse thinking we're bringing in, the more likely we are to disagree. Mm-hmm. And we suck at disagreeing. We're terrible at it. We're kind of wired to agree with each other. Nobody wants to be the member of the tribe who's like, everyone's saying we should go left. And you're like, no, let's go right. It's scary. It's hard to do it. It feels like you're not fitting in. It's really, really challenging. And so the secret to faster decision making is that we absolutely do not need to agree. The best teams who can make the fastest decisions know that they just need to align, not agree with each other. And so better decision making, faster decision making is all about better disagreements. We could talk about how, but that was a lot of like, here's the problem. I want to see which direction you want to go.
I love it. I think that it's so true. And it's one of the most frustrating things that I hear from people is somebody make a decision. And so yeah, I would love to hear the how, because I think that that is a great concept. And a lot of leaders probably are like, no, we have to have consensus. So yeah, share a little bit of the how, because I think people would be interested in that.
Yeah, when you flip the equation on its head and you stop thinking, how are we going to agree? You and I are having a big argument about whatever it is we want to get accomplished. Most of the time, we're putting our energy naturally into, how am I going to get Kerry to agree with me? How am I going to get the group to agree? And I'm saying, throw that in the garbage. The question is, how do I get Kerry to align? And there's usually like two things that we need here. The first seems so simple. Again, people won't believe me. This will get you most of the way there. The first point is, if you're going to disagree, you're going to have to know how. So before you debate the decision, decide who's going to decide. I ran a workshop not too long ago. We put 70 managers on a Zoom call, the least conducive place to make a fast decision. And we made a very important business decision with all 70 of them aligned in under 20 minutes on a Zoom. And it's all because usually what happens is we have a decision to make, we dive into it, and we immediately start debating the decision itself. But we haven't decided who's going to decide. Is Kerry going to decide? Is Jay going to decide? Are we going to vote? Nothing wrong with a vote. Mm-hmm. Consensus is not my recommended path, but at least state it explicitly. Hey, everybody, this is something that we all have to agree with. Otherwise, we can't move forward with it. That's probably the minority of cases, but it winds up being the majority because we haven't called it out. So the first thing you want to do is you want to say, great, this is a decision we need to make. You'll hear immediately people are going to start debating the decision. Just raise your hand. Hang on a second, everybody. Who's actually going to make this decision? And what that lets us do is know if it's Kerry, she's going to listen to the debate. People are going to argue back and forth as they should. That's exactly what we want. And when Kerry has heard enough information to make the decision, she says, okay, everybody, I'm good. I got this, this, and this. I'm ready to make the decision. Let's go. Or if we're going to take a vote, it's next Tuesday. We're going to get in a room and we vote. Let's argue it like crazy from now until next Tuesday. But when next Tuesday comes, All for, all against, decision made, we're done, and we move on. So this is the thing you can look out for, is just you have a decision to make. You will see the first thing that will start happening is people are going to debate the decision itself, stop and ask who's deciding, and have that debate. It takes 5 or 10 minutes. That 5 or 10 minutes will save you 8 hours a week. Incredible, incredible investment. Try it out. You'll see how much faster it goes when you land it.
When expectations are clear up front, it makes everything easier because then people understand, okay, this is the framework that I need to be in. I'm a big believer in that. I'm always like, let's just talk about how this is going to work. Unintentionally, I've been kind of doing that same thing because I see so often when there is confusion about expectations and what you're supposed to do, it's so much wasted time, whether it's decision making or working on a project or trying to figure out how to get to some outcome. If people don't understand the what, they can be responsible for the how, but if they don't understand the what, there is so much wasted time.
Yeah. And this, again, I mean, it's almost as if I've like written you bullets to like tee up the next thought in my head. So thank you. And this is the cheat code after you've decided who's going to decide.
Yeah.
So if you decide who's going to decide and then that person's you, even if it's not you, you can use this, but it's much easier for me to describe it when you are the decision maker. It will primarily feel like you need everybody to agree because of what we talked about earlier. You're going to think, I have to get this person to agree to move forward. You don't. You need them to align. So the cheat code and like the single most powerful question after whose decision is this in decision making that I found is, let's say I'm working on a decision. I have to decide Kerry's not agreeing with me. We've had a big debate back and forth. I have all the information I need from her. We're not agreeing with each other. One of the best questions you can ask in that situation is something like, Kerry, what would need to be true for you to support this decision, even though you can't agree with it? And the language is intentional. I'm asking you to support it, not agree. And I'm saying that you cannot agree with it. So we've decided you're not going to agree with me. That's okay. We had a big debate. I got lots of great information from you. We're not agreeing. Let's put that behind us now. How are we going to align? And usually when you ask somebody a question like that, how they're going to support the decision, they quickly think it through. And it comes down to either, I want to make sure that you heard my thoughts and they were part of your decision-making process. Kerry, I heard you. You said X, Y, and Z. Valid points. They're part of my decision-making process. I'm just making a different decision than the one you would like. Okay, Kerry knows that she was part of the decision. That's great. Other times, a couple times out of 10, Kerry will have something she wants. Hey, can we track this over the next month? And I'd like to follow up in a month just to make sure. But she's telling us things that she needs to support this decision, not things that she needs to agree with it, because we're done with that. And that question right there will just close out the back and forth, trying to get people to agree and get you into a position where everybody's eyes are moving forward. And when you do this with your team, you will save you and everybody else around you a full day every single week. And nothing is more frustrating for people than really slow decision making. It just takes the wind out of their sails like crazy.
I love that. Great example. All right. How about something more on the personal side of enjoying your day-to-day work without quitting your job?
It's funny, you write a book and you think, oh, I'm going to come up with these thoughts that are so unbelievable. And then you write out the sentence and you're like, this is so simple, it almost seems stupid. And, for me, the big realization, again, which feels a little bit ridiculous, but like, if you want to enjoy your job more, do more things that you enjoy. Yeah. So how did I get there? How much time do you actually spend doing things that you enjoy? And when I ask people this question, it's usually the blank stare back of, oh, I don't really know. And that right there is where the problem starts. I like to do an exercise with folks that people can do at home if they want to. You get out a piece of paper. On the left side of the paper, write a list of activities at work that you really enjoy doing. Maybe you like giving presentations. Maybe you like meeting people for one-on-ones. Maybe you really like sitting down with an Excel spreadsheet and figuring out the yada yada financial, whatever it might be. To each his own. You write down a list of all the things you really enjoy doing, and then open up your calendar and look at last week and write down the things you actually did. It'll probably be a longer list. And then draw a line from the things in the left column that you really enjoy doing to the things you actually did in the right column. Ideally, it looks like a plate of spaghetti, like just lines are all over the place. Most of the time, there's like one line. How likely are you to be enjoying your job day to day if you're not doing any of the things that you enjoy. And what tends to fall down for us is there's this idea of best practices that I think is really dangerous. What's best
Yeah.
for you is not going to be best for me, and vice versa. And so what we're trying to do is say, of course, you have to do the things that were in your calendar. You had to have the board meeting. You had to do the all hands meeting with the team. You had to figure out the financial report. I'm not saying throw those things in the garbage. They have to be done. That's why it's called work and not fun or beach time. But be more intentional about the way you're accomplishing them. If you really like giving presentations and you have to give a report to the entire team about how a certain project is going, build a presentation. If you're more analytical and you really like doing data stuff, pull the data, go through the Excel sheet, send it to the team in advance, and tell them to come to the meeting with questions. Both of those approaches accomplish the job that needs to be done. They just accomplish them in two different ways, and they'll be best for two completely different people. And it's very hard to intentionally spend more time working in a way that you enjoy when you haven't started by even defining, hey, here are 3 or 4 things that I really enjoy. How do I get that into more of my day-to-day tasks? Not changing my day-to-day tasks, but just approaching them more in a way of, okay, great. I have to do this thing. These are some things I enjoy. That's going to change the tactics I use to make this thing happen. It's going to change the way I accomplish it. And when you write that list down, if you want to get a cheat code, a quick tip to go do a thing that's going to make a difference, take your list, pick one thing from it, and tomorrow spend 5 minutes finding a way to do that one thing a little bit more. That's honestly all it takes. Small step.
I love it. I think that that's great advice. And I also think that we also need to have the courage to speak up when we are doing work that isn't in alignment with things that we enjoy. So, yes, maybe you can figure out these different ways to be happier in your job by just changing how you're going to approach it. I also think that we need to have more courage to speak up and say, I feel like I could be so much more valuable to the team and company if I had a little bit more of this on my plate, because this is what I'm really good at and this is what I really enjoy doing. Now, and obviously, not every organization makes it safe to be able to do that, which is really unfortunate because they're missing out on higher levels of engagement and employee satisfaction. But I do think it's really important to be able to have those conversations. I had an employee who was in a leadership position and he was not thriving, but he didn't want to let it go because you worked this hard to get up into a leadership
Mm-hmm.
position and managing people. And he came to me and he said, I'm not happy. I want to just do the work. And every time I have to grow and develop and stop in to troubleshoot or help, it frustrates me. I was like, okay, well, then I think that we need to have a conversation about what is the right position for you. And perhaps it's not
Mm-hmm.
in a leadership role. And we ultimately worked it out so that he would leave that role and move into a different one. And he's so much happier, even though his ego had to go through this whole thing of walking away from this thing that he thought that he wanted
Mm-hmm.
to actually going back to doing a role where he was really happy. But he is in such a much better place now. And so I think that having the courage to be able to say, I'm just doing things that I'm not good at and that I don't like also makes you a lot happier. And that's not necessarily a safe place to be either. But having that courage to speak up about what makes you happy, that is something that every single human should be able to do in their work.
It is definitely not your boss's job to tell you how
Yeah.
to enjoy your job. It's your boss's job to help you understand what needs to get done and
Yeah.
in what order. And of course, if they're a good boss, they're going to be thinking a lot
Yes.
about how to make it the best possible environment for you. But one of the best things you can do for your manager is to say to them, hey, I was thinking about this. Here are some things I really enjoy doing. I'd like to find a way to incorporate this more into what my day to day looks like, my
Yeah.
week to week looks like. If you have people that work for you, ask them to do the exercise that I just told you
Yeah.
about. They're going to love that you're asking them about what kinds of things do you enjoy doing. It's going to be like, wow, this is nice that they care about this. And then when you get that list, it's 4 or 5 things. You can do such a huge favor for them by saying, yep, we've got to get that TPS report done. I know that Jay really likes data analysis. I'm going to give him that job. And I'm going to funnel things around in a slightly different way because I'm thinking about not just what needs to get done, but who's the best to do it, who's going to enjoy it the most. It's hard as a manager to figure that stuff out on your own for people. You can ask them. And it's a great way to build rapport with folks that work for you, is just showing them that for you, it's not just about what we're trying to get accomplished. Hey, tell me what kinds of things you're enjoying. They will usually give you tasks. What we're looking for are the way they're doing tasks. I really like
Yeah.
problem solving. That's different than them telling you the problem that they recently solved. I really
Yeah.
like data analysis. I really like meeting new people. That's what we're trying to get at. So when they tell you, I liked last week when I solved this problem, what is it about it that you liked? Did you like that you were sitting and thinking on your own? Did you like that you were getting to interact with Kerry and some other people? You just want to get down to that level of what's the core activity here that they're really enjoying, and what are three or four of those, and it will really help you manage your people to get to their peak. You won't have to think about burnout as much because, I mean, I don't know the technical definition of burnout, but I think it's physically impossible to burn out at something you're enjoying.
Yeah.
And so I think it's helpful all the way around.
So I love this book. I'm so excited. I can't wait to get it. So when did it launch? When did it come out?
Book came out September 2nd. Super exciting to have it out into
That's
the
awesome.
world and be out of the book writing stage.
Oh, I know. I remember those days. That's awesome. Well,
I'm sure.
congratulations. It's hard to write a book. And then before I ask you my final question, what inspired you to do this? Clearly, you're so passionate about finding more joy in your work and the benefits that that brings to your overall well-being. But what is it that triggered you to really explore this in yourself and write this book?
Yeah, it was an accident. Seems kind of odd to fall accidentally into writing a book. I still sit here and people are like, oh, here's Jay, he's an author, who wrote this book. And I'm like looking for the person behind me because I don't feel like an author. And unfortunately, the origin story of my book is a terrible one. It came out of tragedy in my life. It was back when I was building an AI company. I was the COO there. We had raised a lot of money. We were building the company, scaling very quickly. I had one young kid, and my sister was out of nowhere diagnosed with cancer. She went in one day to the doctor's office for a regular checkup. Doctor sent her to the emergency room and said, I think you got to get a scan. She walked all the way there, just to give you an idea of how she was feeling. There was no physical symptom that she was necessarily aware of. And it became very clear very quickly that she had a very, very late stage, very, very aggressive form of cancer. She fought it like crazy. Unfortunately, 9 months after that, before she turned 40, she lost her battle with cancer. She passed away. That was
Oh,
5 years ago. Sometimes I can talk about it and it comes out like I'm telling you what I had for breakfast, and other times I can barely get it out of my mouth properly. I, for a long time, dealt with a lot of guilt because coming out of that, I realized that, first of all, the grief was terrible and I was crashing really hard. There were a lot of
yeah.
people relying on me, and I could tell I wasn't coping, but I didn't know what to do. And the result was I just threw out all my preconceptions and I tried like everything. If someone said somewhere or I read somewhere that something would help me, I was like, giddy up, let's try that thing. Therapy, meditation, cold plunges, productivity hacks, you name it, all of them. And over time, things got better and better and better. And this process of trial and error is what eventually led to the things in the book. And I was dealing with all this grief because I started to realize I was feeling better and living the best version of my life. And somehow I was doing better than when my sister was alive.
Yeah.
And it felt wrong. And now you mentioned the passion, and I think it's the right word. Like, I'm so fired up about it because A, I've seen the benefits of some of the things that I've learned, and B, to not talk about it, to not embrace the fact that it happened, I think would do a humongous disservice. If I could change everything I've learned to bring her back, like, that's a no-brainer. I would do it, and I can't. So instead, the thing I can do is say, okay, there was a very, very small silver lining here, and I'm going to milk that for all of its worth and do it with it what I can in my life and spread it out into other people's as much as I possibly can as well.
That's the definition of resiliency right there, is to be able to take something that's really devastating and hard in your life and turn it into something that positively impacts you, but even more so can positively impact other people. And I'm sure your sister would be so incredibly proud of you. So thank you for
I hope
sharing this
so.
story. You're gonna make me get emotional too. But I really appreciate you sharing that deeply personal story. And I think that it will help people understand why this is something that is so important to you because, yeah, you've got to live your life. And this is the one time that we have on this planet.
I think what I just really realized is because I was in that type A achievement mode, it was
Yeah.
like enjoyment is something
Yeah.
to have later.
After you retire.
And I realized
Mhm.
that I was just completely over invested in the future and entirely under invested in the moment.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to show people that there's a way where you can still be incredibly hard driving and accomplish things. I've never been more impactful with a unit of my time than I am right now. And I've never
Yeah.
been happier and enjoying myself more than
Yeah.
I am right now. And I never would have believed that those two things could be simultaneously true.
Yeah.
And that's what the book is really meant to do.
That's awesome. I can't wait for people to buy it.
Me
Amazing.
too.
All right, last question. The name of this podcast is Reflect Forward. So, in the context of enjoying your life more, what does Reflect Forward mean to you?
I think it makes me think of anti regret, which is a term I really like. I love the idea of picturing where something's going to be at some point in the future and then looking back from that vantage point and saying, okay, what kinds of decisions am I going to make? What's that going to feel like to get there? Something like a pre-mortem. If it goes terribly wrong, why? I really like the juxtaposition of reflect, which usually makes me think backwards, and forward, which is making me think ahead. So yeah, something around the idea of thinking about anti-regret or a pre-mortem or something like that. It's a fun term. I really like it.
I love it. Great answer. Thank you. All right. So, I'm sure people can find your book on Amazon. Are there other places that people can go to learn more about you?
Books on Amazon and all the places that you buy books. I'm
Yeah.
lucky to have a great publisher. If you want to check it out specifically, you want to read more about me, which the book's more interesting than I am, you can go to yourgrassesgreener.com. That's the website for the book. You'll find all the stuff there. You can get in touch with me there. Would love people to pick it up and would love to hear what people think about it and how it changes things for you.
Wonderful. Well, I will share all that in the show notes. And congratulations on a huge milestone and a huge accomplishment. It is not easy to write a book, publish a book, market a book. So, congratulations.
Thank you. Definitely not easy, but I get to meet great people like you, and I'm grateful for the time today, and I'm grateful for everybody's time who made it all the way through the episode with us today. So
Oh, it
thank
was
you very
great. It was a
much.
great episode. Absolutely. All right. Hang tight, everyone. I'll be right back. All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that interview. Be sure to check out his book on Amazon or on his website. All that's in the show notes. I hope you really enjoyed this episode and thank you for joining me. If you like this podcast, please write a review, subscribe to it on YouTube or your favorite podcast channel, share it with a friend. It helps get these amazing stories out, like Jason's. That's it. So we'll see you next week. Take care. Bye.